Hey everybody, and welcome. We are in our final chapter of In the Sea There Are Crocodiles, and this chapter is the Italy chapter. And we are going to take a look at the map here as soon as it loads up. There we go. So we have managed to follow our protagonist, Eniet, from his small town in Nava, Afghanistan, all the way through the Middle East and into Europe. And we're now in the resolution part of the story. So if you remember the climax being the water crossing here into Greece, he is now, we know he's going to survive. He's made it. And the question is he going to do well and thrive? So as the rest of the story plays out, you get to kind of hear how he does overall. He makes it into the city of Venice, and he also meets a man. He asks a man how to get to the city of Rome, and so he says Rome a couple of times, and the guy thinks that he's talking about rum, and eventually gives him a Coca-Cola. But Enniad, we know, has done a really good job in the story of overcoming the language barriers. So he does this several times, and he uses English to do that, and also is going to learn Italian. So he ends up in the city of Rome for a while, and is decides to move on to the city of Turin. And he has a friend there named Payam. And this is a really important thing to know. So he is an asylum seeker. So not only is he a refugee, but he is a person who is looking for safety granted by a country because they cannot be safe in their own country. So he is a political refugee, but he's also seeking asylum or safety. We see some new shoes in this chapter that are a different symbol than the ones we saw when he was crossing the mountains, so pay attention to those. And he begins to make some acquaintances and some friends. He stays with family, but he also ends up being in a detention center for a few months. And these places are really holding pens for people in countries where they don't know what to do with them. If you are interested in this topic, it's a huge issue in America along the southern border. But he spends 2 months in this hostel, and he says it felt like water flowing under a transparent sheet of glass. And for 2 months, I didn't do anything, didn't even speak because I still didn't know the language. The only distractions were watching television in silence and sleeping and eating in silence. So he has a safe place to stay, but he has no real human contact and connection. And I think, given the current state of affairs, I think we can all empathize with that a little bit more than we would have been able to if we were all in school. Also, he overcomes language barrier when he goes to apply and is talking to the people about whether or not he can become a citizen of Italy. And he says, if you speak directly to people, you convey emotions more intensely. Even if you stumble over your words and don't get the intonation right, the message you get across is closer to what you have in your head compared with what an interpreter can repeat. Because emotions can't come from the mouth of an interpreter, only words, and words are just a shell. So he actually refused to use an interpreter when he was in his hearing, his citizenship hearing, and that probably worked in his favor to a large degree. So to end the story, and I'm not going to spoil it here for you if you're watching this before you read the book, but we do see the resolution of our metaphor, which, if you remember, is a comparison between two unlike things. So if you remember on page 145, we have the crocodile metaphor, and Hussein Ali was talking about how there's crocodiles in the sea, and those are actually the dangerous things. So if we compare the sea to life, crocodiles are these dangerous things. In the very last page of the story, we have some additional information about this that's kind of cool. So make sure you read that last page and tell me kind of what that means. Also, we have on this slideshow a couple of interviews. These ones are in Italian. This longer-haired gentleman is Anayatollah Akbari, and this is Fabio Guerra, the author, the guy with not much hair. But there is an interview here in English with Fabio Guerra, and it's actually really good. So if you're interested in any level 4 credit, you can watch that and turn in the notes along with the notes for this. So I hope that's helped, and I hope that you pay attention also to the part in the story where Eniot ends up talking to his mom. It's a really important moment. Thanks a lot. Bye.